This is day 3 of learning Winter Fantasy. The goal for today is to first off finish learning where we left off yesterday. So the last 3 bars we were working on weren't quite up to tempo, so we'll try to get that up to tempo and then finish learning the last 4 bars of what we planned to do yesterday, and then I don't have a lot of time to practice today, so we'll see where that takes us. I'm aiming for about 45 minutes to an hour. Hopefully I can get through to about bar 52, but we'll see. So again, I'm gonna try and see. I'm gonna first see how much I remember from yesterday. Just without a metronome, maybe a little bit under tempo. I'm just gonna play through what I practiced yesterday. So that bar I pretty much completely forgot. Okay. That's fine. Forgetting some stuff that I learned yesterday. In this case, I probably will go back right now and just fix that 1 bar since it is part of this entire phrase I'm trying to learn. Just check with a metronome here. This is 100. Actually, for the... yeah, I'm going to do the whole thing at 100, even though it's marked at 84, just because there's an accelerando. So I'm still having the same problem as yesterday, where the last bar I played there, the F, the B flat going to the F sharp is not very good. I'm doing weird things with my finger, and it's never the same thing. Sometimes I'm going to a G sharp for some reason. Sometimes I'm going to an F natural. So I'm just gonna work on that a little bit. So even though I've forgotten some things overnight, most of it is coming back to me very quickly. Even the stuff that I have forgotten, it's coming back very quickly. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep increasing the tempo. It's still that last bar giving me trouble. It's fine at a slower tempo, so maybe I'm just gonna keep at it at this tempo for a little bit. If it's not working out, then I'll go back to the slower tempo. That's the other thing. I like to stop on the note that that is giving me trouble. If I've identified B flat to the F sharp as the problem there, I'll stop on the F sharp just to make sure I land there. Yeah, and not keep going, just so that my finger remembers going to that place. Because if you're going past it, then your finger kind of doesn't remember this specific thing. Whereas if you stop on it, you'll remember it more. That was 120. I'm gonna speed it up to tempo at 132. Okay, so that's finally starting to feel pretty good. I'm gonna do it a couple times without the metronome, and then I'm gonna add in that molto accelerando at the beginning. all together. I'm just gonna check where 84 is because that's the starting tempo. So we're going from da do do da do do da do do da do dum, and then we're going to end up at da go da 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 do da do da do 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 da. So it's nice to have the starting tempo and the target tempo at the beginning and the end of each rondo in your head before you start. And singing it is just one way to help. So here's again at 84. Bum 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 beam, and this is the end target tempo. Good. That sounds pretty good to me. I'll just do that a couple more times and then I'm gonna move on. I'm also not liking this read a lot. Actually, and as always, it's not a practice session without distractions. So, yeah. Just gonna do the same thing a couple more times and then move on. I'm gonna change this read. I'm not liking it. Alright, better. Good, so I'm gonna move on to the next little bit. The next two bars is just one pattern repeated twice, and then the next bar after that is the same pattern repeated 3 times. Okay, so those are the two patterns. So Mandad does this weird thing where so the first 2 bars is a 5/8 bar, but he has the first 3 eighth notes beamed and the second 2 eighth notes beamed, but the slur is the first 2 eighth note and the last 3 eighth notes. I'll just show you real quick here. Right there. There, those 2 bars. So that's something I'm going to have to wrap my head around eventually. What that actually means, I haven't decided yet, because the beaming and the slur is inconsistent with each other. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but I'm going to guess it's deliberate. And since it's not an accompanied piece, we can't look at the piano score or anything to find out why. But that's just something I'm noticing, and I'll keep it in mind, but I'm not going to figure out right now. Because once again, we're learning notes, and we're not quite getting into the musicality aspects yet. So this is 80. Helps to not bump extra keys. Since this is not very hard, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit faster than I normally would. Normally I go up 10 clicks at a time. Sometimes the harder stuff I'll go up 5 clicks at a time. But this is pretty easy, so I just went up 20 clicks from 80 to 100. And that feels pretty good. I'm gonna go up to 120. This is when I start adding the previous bar before, so that I'm making the connection in my brain and my fingers. And I'm gonna speed it up to tempo. Good, so I'm gonna add a whole thing together. Not too happy with the counting in that one, and the accelerando was weird. one bar. That same bar as before. That's still messing up my fingers. Sometimes when I'm practicing with the metronome, it's fine, but then once I take the metronome away, for some reason I can't play it. So always check that you can still play the passage without the metronome, because the metronome is an extra thing that you're thinking about when you're practicing, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes having too many things to think about is bad for you, but once you take away, there's this thing that's missing. Even if that you're thinking about less things now, it still makes it different, which somehow makes it harder. Okay, so always check that you can still play without the metronome. Good. I like how that repetition went. So I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing a couple more times to solidify it. Do that again. The next bar, pretty easy. I've been adding it, so I'm not going to do it slowly, but I am going to check what the tempo is. So right now it's 132 to the triplet, and the next is 100 to the half note, and this is 3/8 notes. Calculator. So the eighth notes are a little bit slower at 30, what bar is this? 37. Those eighth notes get a little bit slower than what I was playing just before, I believe. Not too much, a little bit slower. I also can't math, it's the same. I multiplied by the wrong number. So the difficult thing here is going from counting 3/8 notes to counting 4/8 notes, and then you have a sustain, and you have to sustain for the right amount of time. So okay, so you have to switch from the 3 to the 4 subdivision at the same tempo. So you have to make sure you count those 4 and not just count the... I'll just show you, it's easier. So the thing I'm thinking about here is the tempo modulation. The last 2 bars on the page there. So you can't be thinking 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, because that's very natural to do if you're just listening to what it sounds like, because the last 8th note in the last bar there is tied over, so it sounds like it should belong to the next thing, but when you're counting it, it belongs to the thing that comes before it. So you really have to be careful with how you count. so that it doesn't throw everything else off. So if I were to articulate out what the counting would be like, that's what it would sound like. Okay, and etc. etc. I'm just gonna do it one more time, and then I'm gonna start learning the next bit. One more time from where we started yesterday. Good. And then the next bit is gonna there's 4 notes in a beat, and to 5 notes in a beat, to 6 notes in a beat, and then back to 4, 4, 5, 4. Once again, I'm gonna start learning this without the rhythm, just to get my fingers around all the notes. The notes don't seem too hard. From what I can tell, it's the same notes, but it's adding an extra note every time. So this, at least for the first 3 beats. So this shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so I'm gonna separate this into 2 separate bits. First bit is the descending part, so the 3 repeated repeated beats with the extra note plus the next beat afterwards, and then I'll worry about the next ascending part after. Also, the first note that I'm going to start practicing is tied over from the previous held note, and there's a breath mark after it, but just because it's the same note groupings, or it's the same notes with an extra note added every time, so I'm going to start as if it started on that note. I'll show you right here. Right there. I'm going to start with that D as if it's part of the phrase, and if that breath mark wasn't there. Okay, so it's not too difficult. I'm gonna start adding the rhythm to it. This is marked at 100 to the half note. I'll start at 60 again. So immediately I know the hardest part is not going to be adding the extra note going from 4, 5, 6, but it's going from the 6 back to the 4 that's going to be the hardest part. So I'm wanting to rush when it goes back from 6 to 4. I'm wanting to rush to 4. Now it's dragging. So I just play that last 4 notes at tempo just to get my finger used to what it's like. And now I'm gonna do the 6 to the 4. Just those 2 and get their transition right. Now back to the whole thing. I'm gonna start speeding it up. Once again, the finger wise it's not too bad, so I'm gonna speed it up 20 clicks at a time instead of 10. the sixth tuplet is a little bit slow. At least the first half of it, and I'm having to make up for the time in the second half. So I'm gonna turn the eighth note subdivision on. It's gonna get weird in the 5th tuplet, but for the 6th tuplet, it will help. Once again, I'm just practicing that 6th tuplet by itself so that it's correct metrically. Good, I'm happy with that. Go up to 100, which is tempo. So once again, I'm noticing that the last 4 eighth notes are starting to drag a little bit. So I have to make it through the 5th tuplet and the 6th tuplet a little bit quicker. It's dragging because I'm getting to the beat late, not because I'm playing too slow. So I noticed that getting back from the F up to the D, from the 5th tuplet to the 6th tuplet, is what's causing me to slow down. So I'm just going to practice that a couple of times. And I'm also noticing that I'm sometimes missing the A flat just because my fingers are going by too fast and I'm not depressing the key all the way. So I'm going to pay attention to make sure I am pressing that key. Good. So I'm more or less happy with that for now. So I'll learn the ascending part and then I'll put it all together. Before that, I'm going to use the bathroom. Okay. So I'm going to start learning the ascending part. Once again, it goes 4-5-4 is the number of notes in a beat. And this one, let's just see what happens. We'll once again start slow. Before I put the metronome on, I'm going to learn the notes first. So right away, I know that going from the B flat to the D is going to take a little bit of finger coordination, just from what I felt, from looking through the notes, and obviously this coordination is always going to be a problem, and it's always something we have to pay attention to, and that's why we practice our arpeggios. So the intervals here get a little bit tricky. I don't really see a pattern to it. Maybe I'm just missing it, but I think it's just something that's gonna have to be committed to finger memory without any reminders or anything to help you through it. So what that means is just it takes a little more repetition, a couple more times. It's gonna take a little bit longer, but you do what you have to do. With recognizable patterns, because it's something you recognize, you already know, it takes a little bit. It doesn't take as long, but with something that you can't really see a pattern, it takes a little more repetition. I'm gonna put the metronome on. I'm going to speed this up 10 clicks at a time instead of 20. Up to 80. Now, I can start to feel that my ring finger in the left hand is starting to lag behind the index finger. It's not to a point where it's making a difference to the sound, but I can feel that it's starting to lag, and when it gets quicker, that's going to cause problems. So I'm going to really focus on having these two fingers lift at the same time in the second beat there. So that feels a lot better. You just have to be really honest with yourself again, about these very little details that may not make a difference to the sound, but especially when you're practicing at slower tempo, you have to make sure every single little detail is good, or else you're gonna get into trouble when you get faster. It's not practicing slowly and repetition is not just about playing the right notes at the right time. It's all about how you feel. If it doesn't feel good at a slow tempo, it's not gonna be good at a faster tempo. I'm gonna bump this up to 90. And at tempo. So pretty much like I predicted, it's causing me a little bit of a trouble now. One, it's not exactly coordinated, and then that is causing me to either miss the note or rush to the next note too quickly. So I'm gonna really focus in on those three notes for a little bit, and then go back to doing the whole thing. And the other thing is, once again, I'm not depressing this key completely, just like the previous bar. So that's also something I'm going to focus on. So the right notes are coming out now, and I'm pretty happy with the way it sounds, but I'm still not feeling confident about it, so I'm just going to keep drilling it until I feel good. starting to feel good. I'll add in the 2 bars from before. Okay, and then I'm gonna add the held note before that, just because there's a breath mark after that held note between the first 2 notes that I'm actually playing here. I'm still messing up that last little bit on a couple of different notes, and it's been different every time, so I'm just going to slow the whole thing back down a little bit, down to 90. And I'm rushing through the F. So the thumb is a little bit uncoordinated. That's the other another thing to remember, to know is which finger is the problem, not which note. Which finger is the problem? Because notes, especially with some of the long fingerings that require more fingers down, not every finger is a problem. For example, if the E is a problem, this E, clarion E is a problem. Maybe it's E going to a G, E to G. Your left hand fingers aren't the problem because they don't move, even though the fingering requires them. It's the problem is in one of these 2 fingers. So it's very important to identify in very specific terms what is the problem. Not which note is the problem, but which finger is the problem. So earlier I said the thumb, when I'm rushing through the F, the thumb is the problem. It's not going to the F, not from the D to the F. These 2 fingers were fine, but it's F to the G, the thumb was the problem. So it's very important to identify specifically which finger is the problem rather than which notes are the problem. Gonna swab because my clarinet's leaking like a waterfall. Speed it back to 100. flat to D. That's causing some issues right now. The ring finger is still too slow, especially since I'm going from 4 notes to a beat to 5 notes to a beat. The five tuplet is gonna be a little bit faster, and my left hand ring finger is not reacting fast enough. So that's what I'm going to work on. So what's happening is my right hand is playing in the rhythm of the 5 tuplet, but my left hand is still playing in the rhythm of the 8th notes, and that's causing this discrepancy. So I found out that if I articulate just a little bit harder at the beginning of that 5 tuplet with the B flat and D, it helps me move my fingers fast enough. Of course, I don't want to be tonguing harder than I need to, but for now it's working, so I'm gonna keep doing it for now and then slowly take away that harder tongue motion when I'm trying to perfect it. But for now it's working and it's helping my fingers, so I'm gonna do it for now. And without the metronome. That's the next bit, and I think that's where we're gonna end for today. Actually, it's been almost an hour. Got a pretty busy schedule ahead of me today, So I'm gonna call it there for today. But before I go, I'm just gonna put everything I learned together from today. Couple finger flubs there. That 9/8 bar is still giving me trouble. So I know in the future I'm gonna have to go back to the 9/8 bar and fix that again. But for now, I'll call it a day. And yeah, I'll see you next time.